Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devi Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindevyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupini Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharam Ajamamashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Bhadrakalye Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Veda Veranda Veranga Vijastana Vayevacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Bhuvaneshwari Devi Ki Jai. So, continuing our discussions on the Devi Bhagavat, from the Devi Gita, from the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. We are on chapter 1, and we're moving slowly through it, verse by verse, almost word by word, concept by concept for the most part. And we are now on verse 20 after 7 meetings, so we're going carefully through. And we're primarily using the translation by C. Mackenzie Brown. But informing that translation with other translators and our own understanding of the verses as far as we can figure them out, to try to unpack them. And even the term, we're unpacking them, meaning we believe there's a lot packed in them, right? And so, and some verses just say what they say, right? The simple meaning, we're treating these verses as being dense, right? And we believe, I think we're justified in this, and ancient translators like Nilakanta and other people who've worked on these verses and they tried to explain these verses or engage them, have also felt that almost every word has some meaning, that it's everything. There's a lot of there's the overt meaning, there's subtle meaning, there's references to other parts of its own text, as well as to the larger Shakta and Panishadic and Gita traditions. The idea that it's connected to other parts of its own text is also very important. That's the primary way when you're trying to discover what a verse means. You look where it's found in the text itself. And today itself, what we will find, there's a references to a practice called the Devi Yajna, right? And we can imagine. I even know when I was beginning my notes, trying to organize my notes with Devi Yajna as a general, and even Mackenzie Brown, generally we can say about, sacrifice to the Devi, but actually it's a reference to a major theme in the Devi Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. The Devi Yajna is a thing mentioned in the Devi Bhagavatam, so we can look for its commentary and its explanation from the larger text itself. We don't have to go searching or our own mental Rolodex of Shakta ideas to try to explain it. We can use the text itself. So we'll do that today. The previous verses, the gods. All right, something's come up on my. It'll come up on my screen. The gods, due to the death of Sati, and the inauspiciousness that was created, an inauspiciousness that was left in her wake of her disappearance. Shiva has gone off to the Himalayas to meditate on her essential nature. Sati is no longer extant in the world. Sabhagya, the auspiciousness of life, has left the gods with the death of Sati. In that vacuum of power, a great demon has come up, a great tyrant of this world, as well as our inner tyrant that can come up when we let our guard down and we don't feel connected to the mother. So a demon, Tarakasura, has come up. He has a boon from Lord Brahma that only the son of Shiva can kill him. Shiva has no son. What to do? The gods go to Vishnu. Vishnu tells them, go immediately to Devi. That's where we left off. That's a summary of the Devi Gita thus far. And the beautiful verses where Vishnu says that the Devi, why are you in anxiety? The supreme goddess Bhuvaneshwari is right now in Manidweep. Manidweep is the goddess's highest heaven, as well as every being within our heart, above our head. We gave many references to that, what Manidweep is. But she exists in Manidweep. She's a wish-fulfilling tree. Anything, find her and your wishes will be satisfied. the immediate wish is the immediate emergency need, right? We have to also consider right now, even our world right now is an emergency mode for many people, right? We have general things, general themes that what we want in life, our spiritual aspirations, but sometimes an emergency comes up and that's our aspiration. We have to deal with the emergency at hand. So their emergency at hand is this demon is taken over. So they want to pray to Ma that she'll be born be born again, and marry Shiva, have a son that will kill this great demon, and thus save the world once again as the saviors of the world. Bhavatarani, the saviors of the world. So they go to Vishnu, and Vishnu tells them, let's go to Devi. And we give a few interpretations of who Vishnu is in the story, right? Vishnu is the word Vishnu itself has been understood to be consciousness, comes from the term all-pervading, Vishwa, like this. So it's consciousness itself, and then we say that sometimes we can also ask our own self. We can ask our inner self, right? Vishnu can represent that. But here now we have to. That's one swipe. Today we'll give a slightly different swipe to that, asking Vishnu. In this story, Vishnu is like the guru. They find themselves in a spiritual crisis or a personal crisis or a spiritual crisis, different ways to interpret it, right? And they go to somebody who has higher knowledge, right? So they go to the guru. Of course, Vishnu being the guru and Vishnu also representing consciousness is important, because in the Vaishnava scriptures, there's this term called Chaita Guru. Chaita Guru means the inner guru or consciousness as guru, something like this, right? And so we actually have the guru within us. So you can imagine, and in those texts it says Vishnu as super soul, as Paramatma, is within our heart, screaming instructions to us, right? But we do not pay attention to him. Not that we don't pay. Some of us don't pay. I mean, many of us. Okay, no, let me change that. I don't always pay attention to him. I don't want to accuse you of my own shortcomings. We don't always pay attention to him. But sometimes, even if we try to, we can't. We don't know how to hear him. We don't know his voice. Right, the still small voice, right? We can't always hear it. We're not trained to hear it. Maybe we're not tuned to hear it. Maybe it's at a frequency that's not our frequency, right? And so that still small voice, that voice of consciousness, our own consciousness, our own conscience and our own consciousness, our higher intelligence made us, the sage made us in the Devi Mahatmyam, appears externally as the the external guru. Right, the inner guru, which is our own consciousness within the super soul, within the soul, the super soul within the heart, right, appears externally, as if, or really, right, in the person of the guru or the tradition of the guru, right, and so we can get the spiritual knowledge that can come within, or that same spiritual knowledge can come from without. And you can see this is, I don't want you have us be habituated to judge our gurus, right? And I don't want to make a list of things a way to judge gurus. But if the guru is the one who is externalization of our innermost being, our innermost consciousness, and the guru gives instructions that goes completely against your innermost being, that's not a good sign. It should be the voice, not always comfortable voice, right? We don't always want to listen to our innermost being, right? That's Tarakasura and the whole mess, right? But the guru unfolds the knowledge that should unfold the knowledge of our own nature, right? Not somebody else's nature or something against our nature. So sometimes we can sometimes get caught in traditions and in groups and in relationships where every day we get further from our own nature, you know. Of course, our inner nature is not the same thing as just the way our personality is firing. So we shouldn't be shouldn't use our externalmost aspect of our personality to judge spiritual knowledge. But I think you know what I'm trying to say. There's some danger. Guru represents our inner being, so the guru completely against our inner being, there's a problem, right? So so Vishnu isn't such a guru. Vishnu literally is the supreme consciousness itself. He is sattva guna itself, right? So, and being sattva guna, that's important, right? So we need to hear the spiritual voice. It's a sattvic voice. It's a quiet voice. We need to become sattvic. So maybe that goes back to the idea of tuning, of catching the right frequency, right? To hear, like, so they went to Vishnu, who in this story is acting as a guru and will give spiritual advice. His spiritual advice is, she's right here, she's right now, she can solve your problems. Our problems are because we're not paying attention to her. And as a result, it seems that she's not paying attention to us, but she is ever awake. Remember these verses, right? Let us go to her. Let's go to her quickly. So the guru does not just say, let's go to her, right? The guru says, let us go to her, right? It's by his own example, her own example, their own example, right? So we'll start with verse 20. Let me get my notes on verse 20. I'm still at verse 6 in my notes. So there we are. Let me do the share screen. That's come? I think so. Yeah. Okay. Verse 20, Devi Gita, chapter 1, verse 20. Ityādiśya surān-sarvān-mahā-viṣṇuḥ svajāyayā saṃyuto nirjagāmā'śu devaiḥ saha surādhipaḥ. So ityādiśya, ityādiśya. Thus, this adisha is, we have a term in the sadhu community when we were discussing this earlier today, trying to understand which word meant which, trying so we can meditate on it nicely. And adisha here means like instruction or command or enjoined, right? Having said. But in the sadhu tradition, we have a term adesh, Swamiji, and the not sampradaya, the not yogis, that's the way they greet each other, adesh, right? Or the way you greet the guru, adesh, or another sadhu, adesh. Adesh means give me instruction, command me, right? In our Mexican family, you know, when my father would say something, my mom would say, Monday, tell me, or command me. It was the etiquette, not an unreasonable displacement of power. It was just, I just remember that when I started hearing sadhu say adesh to each other, it was, I thought it was similar to what I grew up with was this Monday. And even we sometimes do that. Somebody says some things, just tell me, or you give me instruction or inform me. So adesh, instruction. We call it guru adesh. Some in the guru tradition, the sadhu tradition also, we say, oh, that why am I doing this? Why am I living here? Why am I in this service? Because my guru gave me an adesh. He's given me an instruction. And so I've taken that instruction as my life work to satisfy that instruction, right? So that's sometimes, you know, sadhus get sent someplace, you know, to this ashram or this center or to do this work. That's guru adesh, if I'm following my guru's instruction. That's okay for big things and managing of an ashrams and things like this. But Guru Adesh really is the instruction of Guru on sadhana. That's really Guru Adesh, not just, you know, behavior things and services for the ashram like this. What is the, so ityādiśya, the Guru's instruction. So thus enjoining here, anjat enjoining, or thus having said, having given this instruction, right? What was the instruction? Go to Devi, right? So they go to Devi. So you'd think what you do if you go to Devi, where is she? She's in Manipura right now, right? But they don't go to Manipur, right? The jeweled island, because it's not easy to get to Manipur, the jeweled island, right? You have to get to a place from which you can get to Manipur. I remember an old commercial, funny commercial, where, you know, somebody drives up asking for instructions and directions, pulls up, and some townsman comes out and says, where are you heading? I'm trying to touch a village. Oh, you can't get there from here, right? So some places you can't get to a place from everywhere, right? You have to get to a place where you can get to where you're going from. So this is what happens. So it says, thus enjoining all the gods. Surān means gods, right? And sarvan means all. So all the gods.
Right.
So surān-sarvān, all the gods, but not just the gods. The guru went with them, right? Maha-Viṣṇuḥ, the great Vishnu, right? Maha-Viṣṇuḥ is one of the classic names for God, for Vishnu. Ityādiśya surān-sarvān-mahā-viṣṇuḥ svajāyayā. And so we were struggling with this term, right? And it seems to be, and just by looking at four translations that we have, all of them say along with his wife, or Swami Bhajanananda is more explicitly along with Lakshmi, right? So svajāyayā must mean the one's own. Swa means one's own. So somehow or another that word is a term for, it must be a term. It's the only term that doesn't fit, that we're not so familiar with, along with one's wife, right? Or their Shakti or their consort, something like this. Or maybe it's a name for Lakshmi, I'm not sure, but it's not clear to me. Swami Bhajanananda says, thus are ordering the devas, Vishnu with his consort Lakshmi and the other devas quickly went out to worship Devi. So what is that? So saṃyuto, right? I'm sorry. Nirjagāma means went out, they went. Ashu, quickly. Devaiḥ, the gods, right? What do they do? And saha, along with. So surādhipaḥ, the Lord of. Sura means gods. Adipa means Lord or Master, foremost. So here Vishnu is described here as foremost of the gods, right? That's his title. Or usually we think, very often you'll see that surādhipaḥ sometimes refers to Indra, as Indra is a foremost of the gods, as a king of the gods. But here it seems that this is it's pointing towards Vishnu. So Vishnu, all the gods, hearing this instruction, all the gods accompany Mahavishnu along with his wife, and all the gods all go to set forth immediately. Where do they go? To Manadvip? They're trying to get to Manadvip, to the jeweled island of the Devi. But they go to do some worship to get to a place where they go to Manadvip. Let's see where they go. Verse 21, the next verse. Ājagāma, Maha Shailem, himavantaṃ, nagādhipam. Let's start with that. Ājagāma, Maha Shailem. Ājagāma means they came. Where did they go? Here it's like they came to a place by saying last verse they went somewhere. Here it's saying they came to a place. So it's just slight shift in perspective, right? Maha Shailem. Maha Shailem, Maha means great or big, right? And Shaila means, we get the word, maybe you have a shalagram, Shila, meaning the stone emblem of Vishnu, a form of Vishnu. So Shailam is related to that. Maha Shailem means the great rock, right? So this is a name, one of the names of the Himalayas, right? Different mountains are Shailams, and Maha Shailem is the Himalayas. And then the next line says the Himalaya, himavantaṃ, the great mountain, the great Himalayas. There's many mountains. Himalayas are the greatest mountain. I think he translated the rocky crag because Maha Shailem means big rocks or big rock. So he's translated as like the Himalaya, which is full of big rocks. That could be a way of thinking it. But Maha Shailem is sometimes just the name for a great mountain or a name for the Himalayas, the great mountain, the Himalayas, right? So we know how the story ends up. So this is a unique viewpoint. So we know what's going to happen, right? We know that eventually the Devi will appear, offer them a boon, and the boon is that she'll be born as Parvati. We know that because opening verses is what happened? I'll tell you. Eventually, Sati took rebirth as Parvati, as a daughter of the Himalayas. So it's not. So we know, the reader knows, right, more than the gods and Vishnu know, right? But so we're being told up front what the words mean, right? Because she's going to be born in the Himalayas, right? So she's going to be born as the daughter of the Himalayas. Parvati literally means a daughter of Parvat, means mountain. It's like Maha Shailem means mountain. Parvat also means mountain, right? So here we're getting told at the upfront, they went, where did they go? They went to the Himalayas. What's going to happen? The Devi is going to appear in the Himalayas, and not only appear in the Himalayas where they're going, she's going to be born in the Himalayas as the daughter of the Himalaya, the Himalaya personified, right? So it's there in the very verses. So I think it's always interesting that when we're told the outcome before the characters are told, right? So obviously we're being told that it's not a mystery novel where we don't know till the end, right? We don't know till the character, we don't know who did it until the characters know who did it, until the detective knows who did it, right? We're told up front because we're not meant to miss these. This is my interpretive stance, right? We're not meant to miss these clues, right? And therefore we can, if we're told up front, they went to the Himalayas because she's going to be born as the daughter of the Himalayas, right? Then we have to think, what does that mean, right? We're being told up front, and we're being encouraged, I think, to unpack what that means, right? So the Himalayas could be many different things. What are the Himalayas? Parvati, the daughter of the Himalayas, we've interpreted, many yogis have interpreted from the yogic perspective, is that this body itself is considered Parvat, the mountain, right? And the central peak of the Himalayas, the mystical mountain, Mount Meru, right? At the topmost peak of Mount Meru is called Kailash, with the abode of Shiva, right? But Mount Meru has been interpreted, right, as or been equated, was identified by yogis as the spine or the Sushumna. We call that Meru Danda, right? The stick, the central staff, right? It's also a mountain, and the highest peak of the Himalayas is Mount Meru. Mount Meru is the spine, or the spine is the Meru Danda, but more subtly, it's the Sushumna, which means, so that's one thing, that the Mount Meru is the spine. The topmost peak of Mount Meru would be the top of the spine. Top of the spine is our skull, or a head, or a brain, but yogis understand it to be even above that, the top of the head, right? The Meru Danda goes all the way up, and then above that, where Kailash really is, at the top of the head, this is the abode of Shiva, right? The highest mountain, right? So if Mount Meru is the highest peak of Mount Meru is the top of the head, what is the mountain then? The whole mountain is the body, the Parvat, right? The Maha Shailem, this great rock, the earth element, our earth element. Not just our body, personally it's our body, but our body is just part of the earth element that we identify with, right? We identify with this body because we think this is ours. The mom and mamta, the I and mine are so connected because we think this is ours. We think this is me. We identify with it, right? And we've used this example before that if I'm driving in my little Honda and somebody crashes into me, I'll get, hey, you hit me, right? And where if somebody hits another car, I don't feel like I've been hit. If they hit me, if somebody punches me, you say, why'd you hit me? Don't touch me. If somebody touches my car, and you say, you hit me, right? If I had a limousine or a bus and they hit, and I was in the front and the back bumper is 60 feet behind and somebody hits me, I come out, you hit me, right? Because I identify with it. So the point is that the Parvat, the mountain, is we consider this as us, and therefore this is our body. But Parvat is the material element, the material world, right? The external gross manifestation, the final, from earth, from ether to air to fire to water to earth, whether it goes down through the chakras, astrally or psychically in the yoga and tantric tradition. But we can also just think of the elements from the most subtle to the gross. Earth means gross. Earth means solid, means foundational. You can't fall off the ground. You can't fall off the earth. This is as far as you go, right? So from that most gross, within the most gross, within the body, within our body, and within the earth element, she's going to be born. We know that ahead of time, right? We're told that before verse 1 of this, right? She's going to be born. Actually, in the whole previous story, he mentions it before we even get to Devi Gita, the story of stating that's going to be mentioned, right? So once again, we have to understand this interpretation that where do they go? In the story, we can think, oh, they went to the Himalayas to do austerity, to get a vision of the Divine Mother, so that they can ask for her boon, that she'll be born as Parvati, to marry Shiva, to have a child as Kartikeya, who at 6 days old will kill Tarakasura, and thus end their suffering, and the whole world's suffering. And we hope that happens. It does happen. I'm also telling you that. We know that part too, as a story form, right? But they go to the Himalayas. I've been to the Himalayas. I suggest you go to the Himalayas. You'll feel why this is so special. But the Himalayas also mean, or maybe even primarily mean, right? The Merudanda, the top of the Himalayas, the top of the skull, top of the head. The Himalayas means the body. The Himalayas also means the world, right? But the Himalayas are lofty. So it's not just any part of the world, right? She's born, actually we know as Kundalini, and the idea of Kundalini interpretation is justified because there's verses coming up that describe her as Kundalini in the body and in the world, right? So that's part of the Devi Gita is a Kundalini affirming text, right? So it's not like, oh, there's no Kundalini in this text, why are you reading Kundalini into it? We can be accused of that in the Devi Mahatmyam, right? We give the interpretation, we give a lot of Kundalini interpretation when the word Kundalini is not mentioned, right? But here Kundalini is mentioned many, many times, and one of the final things in the whole text is how to awaken Kundalini, right? So this is, it ends with how to awaken Kundalini. We're being hinted at in the beginning. She's got, where is she going to be? She's going to be born in the body, but how do you make her manifest? She's already in the body, right? How do you make her really, to be born in the body means to become obvious, right? She's hidden in the body right now. We need to make her obvious. The awakening of Kundalini is the birth of Parvati, right? The one who's born from the mountain, right? Who comes out of the mountain, right? Who's within the mountain comes out of the mountain. So this body is the Himalayas, right? But they go to the top of the Himalayas, right? Which means they go, so there's a mood of aspiration, of height. I think that's very beautiful. They go up, right? They call out, they call up, right? And in one sense, you could say you should be calling down and bring Ma up, but from the highest position, the closest you can get to, if Manidvip is also the highest heaven, above, as is described, above Golok, above Kailash, above Satyaloka and Brahmaloka, and that's why it's called, if it's that, you can't get there from here, you get there you go as close as you can get, you get there from as close as you can get, right? So they go to the very top. So this has been interpreted as they're meditating, they're bringing their consciousness up and to the top of the head. And if this body is the mountain and they're at the top of the mountain, that can be interpreted, right, as beyond body consciousness, right? So this is the sadhanas they're going to do is above body consciousness, right, at the top of the head. And if you go to the if you drive up into the Himalayas or hike into the Himalayas, you leave the world. I mean, it's still the world, it's still solid, but you're going beyond your cares, your anxieties, and the higher up you go, I mean, this is my experience, right? Swamiji's experience. You tangibly go beyond the worldly thoughts and conceptions and identifications and more and more rarefied realms that seem to be even touching this world, not just metaphysical principles. It's like every mile, every kilometer higher you go, you feel you're going higher and higher into spiritual realm, because that's our experience, right? It's everyone's experience, many people's experience. So where do they go? Where does the guru tell to go? Go to the Devi. I'll show you. I'll take you there. I'll go with you. The guru says. Vishnu says, and he takes. And and where do they go? They go to the Maha Shailem himavantaṃ. They go to second here. They go to the top of the Himalayas. Actually, this next word, the nagādhipam. Naga also means mountain, right? And adipam means lord or ruler, right? So that's title for somebody who controls something, but it has a subtle another meaning of like highest, right? So even though it's like they go to the Himalaya, the Lord of Mountains, amongst mountains, he's a Lord of Mountains, right? You say like that, but it's also, there's a metaphor, not that you have to take it as a metaphor also, is that Lord of Mountains means the highest mountain, the highest place. So this is again idea that they're going to the top of the, going to the Himalayas, going to the top of the head. Going to the top of the head also means going beyond body consciousness, right? And that's actually where a lot of our spiritual life kind of starts, right? We have to get to that point. It's not the end, it's the beginning, right? So we'll see. What do they do when they get there? Let us see. Also, before we move on, where do they go? They go to Himalaya, they go to the top of the head. It's also, if you think of it, they don't stay where they are. They go somewhere else. Physically, in the story, they go to the Himalayas, right? I've done this, right? There's a certain point where you're having some spiritual struggle and you need some juice, you need some new inspiration. So you go on pilgrimage, you change your place and you go to a special place, not just any place, right? You can't just, and also it's like, you can go to the mountains, that's wonderful. But you go to a special mountain. Himalayas is the king of mountains, right? There is something to retreats, to special sadhanas and special places. I think that also hints a little bit at this, right? Sri Ramakrishna said it many places, many times. When people would ask him, what is the way? We're in the world. Thakur, we're in the world. What's the way for us to remember God and to make spiritual progress? And he'd usually come back to 3 or 4 main points: remember God, sing God's name and glories all the time, discriminate or discern between the real and the unreal, or the temporary and the effort and the unchanging, between the substantial and the insubstantial, this type of like that. Seek holy company, right? The company of sadhus and devotees, right? And then he'd say, and time to time, go into solitude, right? Go into retreat. This is what we're saying, going to retreat. And Swamiji, what's the term there? They kind of, it's a clever way of saying the 3 places you're supposed to go into solitude. What is it? Oh, you lost you again.
It's then to meditate, you go mone, kone, or bone.
Mone, kone, or bone. Mone, kone, or bone. So mone means in the mind, right? I get that's right. Kone means in a corner, like your corner, some hidden place in your house or something like that. And vone, or vone means or a forest. What is a good place to meditate? Where to go for retreat, time to time, to leave the world behind. Because he says, thinking 24 hours a day, being immersed in worldly responsibilities and thoughts, these thoughts won't come, right? We need occasionally to withdraw. Maybe not all the time. He didn't say renounce the world and go to live in the forest. No. But time to time, you have to go into the forest. And if you can't go into the forest, at least go into a corner, right? If you can't go into a corner, at least go into yourself, into your mind, right? You can close your eyes. You know, when you close your eyes, so like, why close your eyes in meditation, right? What's the difference between open eyes and closing eyes? It's a tiny, it's a 16-inch thickness of skin. And someone knows that's supposed to make you realize God or not realize God. It's not that. We should see God with open eyes, with closed eyes, like this, right? But you close our eyes and the world's gone. Well, at least the visible part of it is. You plug your ears, another 1/5 of the world's gone, right? Right, so we have to withdraw the mind time to time, Sri Ramakrishna says, right? So, and it's interesting, sometimes like I always take that we have to go into solitude, and Sri Ramakrishna go into solitude, right? But sometimes we go into solitude with people, right? We go on retreat with somebody. We go to a retreat, right? Where they arrange meditation time, they bring your food and yoga on the beach or whatever. So some of that is like, so you can say here they went together on retreat. They went into solitude together. They left the world, right? And they went to a special place, right? And we've interpreted this is mone, this is vone, and this is kone. They went to the highest mountain, the forest. We also interpret this. They went to a secret place. They went into their own consciousness, right? Like this. So I don't want to move on before I wanted to make that point. So then what do? When they get there, when they get to the retreat, when you get to the forest, when you get to your meditation nook or meditation room or closet, right, or your little corner on the beach that you like to sit to meditate, what did they do, right? Let's see what they did. Let me see if I can read it out loud here. Abhavaṃśca cha surāḥ sarve puraścaraṇa-karmiṇaḥ. What did they do? All the gods, Sura, Sarve, all the gods, what did they do? The first thing they did is puraścaraṇa. So the first thing they did is the first thing you're supposed to do, right? So puraścaraṇa, he translates preliminary acts of worship. The opening, the first things they started with the first things. So I think that's also instructive. They started whatever the first thing you're supposed to do in your sadhana, they did the first thing you're supposed to do in your sadhana. The very word is puraścaraṇa, means the first practice, the first part of worship. Karmiṇaḥ means they did rites. So what is that? So here's the preliminary acts of worship. They did the puraścaraṇa karma. So what is puraścaraṇa? So we have to think, what is puraścaraṇa? Puraścaraṇa is a technical term. Puraścaraṇa, it's mentioned, I mean, in the tradition in Tantra, it's a very important idea. And in a category of literature called Mantra Shastra, this is texts that describe the practice and importance and details of mantras, Mantra Shastra, right? There is one text especially called the Mantra Yoga Samhita, right? And there's many other authoritative texts. If you want a little bit an accessible version of Mantra Shastra, Swami Shivananda from the Divine Life Society, Shivananda Ashram, he has a book called Japa Yoga, right? And he's described, I think the subtitle is an authoritative summary of Mantra Shastra, right? You know, so it gives I mean, from his perspective in the yoga tradition, but there's also some very good chapters on how to do puraścaraṇa. And Mantra Shastra is we chant God's name, we sing God's name. Maybe the guru has initiated us into a name or a mantra, and we practice that, and we do the rites that he tells or she tells us to do. And those rites could be considered puraścaraṇa. We do as he tells us to do, or she tells us to do. We do puraścaraṇa, right? But that's based on a science. Mantra Shastra within Tantra is its own well-conceived system of thought and practice. And so mantras, and the next 2-3 verses, some of them we may get to one more today, but there's more coming, describing different aspects of mantra sadhana, right? As per Mantra Shastra and Tantric Mantra Shastra, right? It describes a mantra, the type of mantra that we recite. There's different types of mantra. There's mula mantras, there's bija mantras, which are seed sounds. That's very important in this text, especially the Maya bija, which that's a central mantra for Bhuvaneshwari. We'll mention it next week probably, because that's where it will come up. Different beach sounds. Om is a beach sound, for instance. Aim, Hreem, Shreem, these are beach mantras. Clean. Then there's mula mantras. These are root mantras. These are the type very often will be somebody, you may be initiated into a beach mantra. You may be initiated or practice or find a mula mantra. An example of a mula mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. Mula mantras have 3 things to define as per Mantra Shastra. It has a bija, like in Om Namah Shivaya, that bija mantra is Om. It has a nama, a name. The name there it's Shiva. And here in the vocative form is Shivaya, O Shiva. And it has a kriya, right? Kriya means action. So, and there is I bow, or I worship, or I surrender, so namaha, right? Om, bija, nama, Shivaya, and action, namaha. And so I bow to Shiva, right? That's a mula mantra. And that's bij mantras and mula mantras are very often the type of mantras one would recite in puja, one would recite in japa and sadhana. That's a very common type, especially in Tantra. This is the specialty of Tantra. A central part of Tantra is bij mantras and mula mantras. But there's other mantras, Gayatri Mantras. In our previous courses, the course on the Hindu goddess course, we've talked about some of these things already. So I'm repeating myself to some of you. A Gayatri mantra is is a glorification and prayerful mantra. It's both an operatic mantra, means glorification, as well as in a prayerful mantra asking for a boon. Oh thou, and with these beautiful qualities, or usually at least 3 qualities mentioned in Gayatri Mantras, and it's a meter of Gayatri, the particular meter, 24 syllables per verse. That's called the Gayatri meter, Chanda. And then it says, and usually it's like, oh, to illuminate me or purify me. Very often the Gayatri Mantras have that form. Oh thou, oh goddess, or Vishnu. There's Gayatri Mantras for many deities. There's a classic Vedic Gayatri mantra called the Savitri mantra. Om Bhurvasaha Tatsaviturvarenyam. Many of you have heard this mantra. That's to the sun or to the goddess of the sun, and it's praying for illumination. And so many of these mantras, may that God, Tatpurusaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayate, we meditate upon that divine person. We contemplate the great God Shiva. May that Rudra illuminate me, right? Or something like that. That's the Gayatri mantra. That's also used. This is also usually an initiated mantra that one recites according to. And then when one learns a mantra or any type of sadhana like that, a bij mantra, mula mantra, Gayatri mantra, or verses like Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, these prayer verses these are called pranam mantras. There's dhyan mantras where we meditate upon the form, describing the form of the deity to be meditated upon, contemplated on. There's kavacha mantras that are done to invoke protection, right? There's so many different types of mantras in there. And puja, offering mantras and puja. But when one learns this, there's also yam niyam. We all know yam niyam from the Yoga Sutra, right? Yama niyam, and for yoga, as per the Yoga Sutra, we have 5 yamas, 5 niyams, right? Cleanliness, non-violence, honesty, non-acceptance of gifts. These, we know that classical list is the first 2 limbs or angas of the Ashtanga, the 8 limb of yoga as presented by Patanjali. In this text itself, later we're going to get, she will describe, the Devi will describe yamas and niyamas. It will be a different list, a later list that's come in the tantras of 10 yamas and 10 niyamas for the practice of yoga, Kundalini yoga and the like. But every sadhana has yam niyam. Very often you'll ask, when somebody gives a sadhana, you're supposed to ask, what's the yam niyam? How are we supposed to do it? Are there any restrictions? Example of restrictions. Oh, first, the Guru may tell you, do this after taking your bath and washing your mouth, and then sit on an asana and sit with your back straight, and then count. And then they tell you, oh, use your fingers, or when you're chanting on the beads, don't chant on this one, start with this one, but don't use this finger, things like that. That is yam niyam. And sometimes it could be more. It's like, oh, for this mantra, you have to be vegetarian for the time you're doing this mantra, or you can't do this mantra when you're sexually active. So this is a temporary mantra, but you have to, there's all, or you have to face east, or this mantra you should face south, the Kali mantra, or this mantra you should wear an orange cloth or a red cloth, or this mantra you should be naked when you do the puja, or just in a kopi, something. These are yam niyam. These are the observances, right? And usually in tantric mantras, bij mantras, mula mantras, and these mantras have yam niyam, right? So puraścaraṇa is in that tradition of a mantra shastra will give yama niyam, is an aspect of yam niyam, right? So in tantra, in mantra shastra, it says, I mentioned there's bij mantras, there's mula mantras, and these different types of mantras. Then mantras themselves have the tantric yogis, and they've realized, or Shiva or Devi has spoken to the tantras these details. They have energetic secrets to make them living, to make them work, right? That's the idea, that they're occult, right? They're secret, they're energetic, and so it says that the mantras have any powerful mantra will have a bija. Every mantra has a bija, even if the bija is not obvious what the seed is. They have a shakti, an energy, right? That the energy of the mantra. They have a chaitanya, a consciousness of the mantra. They have a devata, a deity of the mantra. They have a chandaha. They have which is the meter of the mantra, right? They have a rishi. A rishi is the deity or the saint or the sage that first heard the mantra or practiced the mantra or who gave or taught the mantra. That's the rishi. Like an example of this is in the Gayatri, in the Vedic Gayatri Mantra, it says Brahma Rishi. Brahma is the Rishi. Brahma is the first person to speak and hear this mantra. Gayatri Chandaha. Gayatri is the 24 syllables per meter. I mean, it's a meter. Gayatri is the meter, right? Savitra Devata, the goddess of the god sun, Savita or Savita, the goddess behind the sun, is the Devata, right? Like this. So and then there's also a called the Viniyoga. Viniyoga is why the mantra is done. What's the purpose? What's its application? And so there's another type of mantra called the Viniyoga mantra. A Viniyoga mantra describes all those details. It describes what the bija is, what the deity is, what the sage is, what the meter is, and why it's supposed to be done. Right? Why sometimes describe what Veda comes from, you know, all kinds of stuff it will describe, but usually these are the main points, right? And also there's also a kilakam. Kilakam means a pin, right? And a pin is something that here is like something like that holds something together. I sometimes imagine like a pin of a grenade. That's the kilakam, right? And so a grenade is a perfect example of a bij mantra. There's something that has power. It has potential, and it's used for something, and it should, and you have to be really careful how you use it, and it should only be used for what it's meant to be used at the right time. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt others, or you're not, or at least you're not going to get the result you want. The Viniyoga will not be satisfied, right? You know, if you're trying to you're playing with it or use it and you hurt yourself, and you know has no value, and you didn't accomplish what it was meant to do, right? The whole secret of the grenade is the pin, right? So the pin, the kilakam is really important, and then so the kilakam holds the power of the mantra, right? How do you? That means you can sit there and juggle a grenade and nothing will happen because the pin's inside of it. You can hit it with I mean, I wouldn't suggest hitting it with a hammer, but you hit it with a hammer, nothing will happen because of the pin. You remove the pin, and then you have to you drop it, you're in trouble, right? If you don't drop it and you just wait, you're in trouble. It's a very volatile situation, right? But the pin is all important. So to make a grenade work, you have to know what it's for. You have to understand its danger, its use, how to engage it, and to know you have to remove the pin. How do you remove a pin of a mantra? When you remove a pin of the mantra, as per Mantra Shastra, this is using the language of mantra. The next 3 verses are the language of Mantra Shastra. You have to awaken them. You have to make the mantra alive. You have to awaken its Shakti. I mentioned every mantra has a Shakti, right? And how do you open the Shakti? And also its Chaitanya, its consciousness. How do you awaken the power of a mantra or the consciousness of a mantra, or get the deity of the mantra, respond to the deity of the mantra, right? Is by removing the pin. How do you remove the pin, right? Puraścaraṇa is the method to remove the pin, right? That's why it's the first thing. You have to remove after knowing all these details, the first thing you do, move the pin, and then throw the grenade, right? To use a very bad, especially in this moment, but this is the image that comes to me. It's a very effective example, right? Although unfortunate in this moment in history. You move the pin. So puraścaraṇa is to make, and so awakening enlivening the deity, awakening the Shakti, expanding the conscious, and fulfilling the Viniyoga of a mantra, that's termed mantra siddhi in Tantra. Mantra siddhi means to attain to have the ability to use an awake mantra, to get the blessing. You've attained an awake mantra. So to use the example to continue on the unfortunate example of the grenade, right? How do you get a grenade to be active? So you can I can tell you, okay, grab it this way and pull it. To remove the safety hatch, grab it this way and pull it with your right hand, be ready, or with your left hand, be ready to throw with your right hand, right? That I can show you how to do that, right? Or I can remove the pin and hand it to you, right? I can give it to you awake, active. I can hand you a gun that's cocked and loaded, or I can give you and tell you how to load it, how to relieve the safety, how to cock it, how to use it, or I can give you something fully loaded, or hand you a grenade that's pins undone, may be dangerous, right? And we mentioned Tantra is esoteric and potentially dangerous, right? That's what this is the thing. So how do you awaken a mantra? So I can give you something awake, or I can tell you how to awaken it. So in the time of initiation, both things happen. Sometimes a mantra is given awake, right? Given by the yogi, the guru, through the tradition in his own practice, has received an awake mantra, or has awakened the mantra by tapasya, by puraścaraṇa, right? His own repetition properly, right? And then gives you something living, right? Or he'll give you something and tell you, you need to do these rites and chant this mantra so many times with this yama niyama, and then you'll get mantra siddhi. The mantra will become awake, right? And sometimes it's both. The other example I give you is like, if you want to if you're on a bicycle, and from on a flat stopped, and you get on the bike, I can tell you, a teacher, I've taught people, I've learned how to ride a bike, and I've taught people how to ride a bike. You start, there's many things you have to learn, but even once you learn it, you learn the technique, you got the balance, you still have to, the first few pedals, get going. Once it gets going, it doesn't take much time to keep it going. So you can get it going, or I can get you on the bike and push you. I give you a running start, right? And the pedals are spinning. Then all you have to do is get the rhythm, get your feet to match the pedals and keep it going. And then it's not that hard. So sometimes the mantra is given, or technique is given living or moving, and then you still have to do something. You still have to do puraścaraṇa to get it going, or you're giving something and then and you have to do the practice, put in first a little bit more effort to get it going. What is the effort? So I'll tell you what puraścaraṇa is. And this is what it means to have mantra siddhi, as per Tantra. And we're getting this text mixes Tantra and Yoga and Vedanta and Bhakti, right? So we have the languages, it gets a little bit merged, right? We have to pull it apart a tiny bit. Here, the language of Bhakti is like, I'm calling out God's name out of devotion. I don't need to know mantras. I don't need to know yama niyama. I don't need to know I don't need to do all these rites. So that just by devotion, the name of God is all important. It's all I love, and I say it with love and devotion. That's true. We're talking here a little bit technical, right? Because there may be a reason for the technical part too. Puraścaraṇa. So the classic definition of puraścaraṇa is, let's say you have the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, right? Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya is 5 letters. Adding Om, it's 6 letters, aksharas, right? So puraścaraṇa is minimally, you'll have to do in a systematized way with all kinds of restrictions. You'll chant Om Namah Shivaya 500 or 600,000 times. That is puraścaraṇa. So you think, how can I do that? Obviously, I'll need a retreat. I'll need a quiet place. They went to the Himalayas for it, right? We've done it. We've done some of these practices. We have to make arrangements. Who's going to bring our food? I have to sit if I sit for 5 hours in the morning, then I take my lunch, then I sit for another 3 hours, and I do that for 13 days. You have to plan very systematically how to get the repetitions down. So per syllable, the minimum of a puraścaraṇa is 100,000, right? Even of any mantra, but the proper is 100,000 per syllables, right? So if like the Gayatri Mantra, puraścaraṇa of Gayatri Mantra is 24,000, 2,400,000 mantras, right? So I know people who've done multiple puraścaraṇas of Gayatri. As a result, they're considered to have siddhi of Gayatri. When they chant Gayatri, Gayatri comes in front of them. we chant Gayatri and we get distracted because we do it 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, not hundreds of, I mean, puraścaraṇa, they've unlocked, they've removed the pin, they've worn down the pin and the consciousness. And if it doesn't, they keep doing it. Again, they do another puraścaraṇa. I remember one sadhu taught us a mantra for the benefit of the temple, Kali Mandir, and he told, do puraścaraṇa. Right, he said as a group we should do it. So we were doing it as a group. People were coming in and doing 10 rounds and marking down. So as a group we did it. And then he told me as a sadhu, you should do it. So I did it over 10 days of this, not the full 100,000, not it's a longer month, not 1,200,000 mantras or whatever like this. Right. And then we were like, oh, we're exhausted, not an easy thing to do. You know, I didn't say Devi, but she didn't come and fix our problem. Maybe she did, but she didn't, not that way. And then Usha met that sadhu. He was over 100 years old. She went to India and told the sadhu, "Oh, Bapu, the group did, as you said, and Swamiji also did. He looked good." Again, right? You know, it's like, oh, don't ask us about advice. They give you big projects, right? Puraścaraṇa is not an easy thing. It's an austerity, right? 100,000 times per syllable over a certain amount of days. Following, you have to sit in one pose. You can't speak in a foreign language. You can't eat meat. You have to be strictly celibate. You can't take any type of intoxicants. You can't get up from your seat until your allotted number is done. There's lots of rules like this, right? You can only eat one time a day, only sattvic food, there's no salt, you know, all these, no chili, there's all these rules, right? The yama niyam of puraścaraṇa. Then, so after you've done 100,000 per syllable, right? 1/10 of that, you have to do as a fire ceremony. So let's say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I've done Om Namah Shivaya 100,000 times, right? Over so many days. Now I have to do 1,000 times Om Namah Shivaya Swaha, Om Namah Shivaya Swaha, Om Namah Shivaya Swaha into the fire. Then I have to do 1/10 that number, which means 100 times tarpan, which is sprinkling of water. Right, so Om Namah Shivaya was sprinkling tarpan and offering of water. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, tarpayami, Om Namah Shivaya, tarpayami, Om Namah Shivaya, tarpayami. And then 1/10 of that, I have to feed Brahmins or feed sadhus or feed devotees or feed, ideally Brahmins in the tradition, but of course some of the traditions are different. You have to feed orphans, you have to feed dogs, so whatever, but usually it's feeding 1/10 of that. So 100,000 mantras, japa, 1,000 fire offerings, 100 water offerings, and 10 feedings of Brahmins or sadhus or devotees or poor people, right? That's puraścaraṇa per syllable with following strict rules, right? Why? So that the mantra becomes awake. There's a problem is that in one sense, the mantras are always awake. So what's really happening? I mean, we have to be careful what we say. It's the mantra that has to be awakened and purified, but we have to be purified. By so doing it, we rev ourselves up, we concentrate, we focus, right? We become, our distractions go away, we have breakthroughs. You know, I remember when I first tried to do, in my young, foolish days, egotistical days, if I only had a kutir in the Himalayas, I can meditate 12 hours a day and do puraścaraṇa like that. And God, in his infinite sense of humor, I mean compassion, gave me the exact situation, gave me a kutir in the Himalayas, people bringing my food. And after 20 minutes, my back hurt. And after an hour, my back screen was, and after a few days, I was going crazy, and I went down, had pizza. You know, I couldn't hold it. You know, it's like you have to go through a lot of breakthroughs when you do these type of tapasyas. They're not easy, right? It's very so, but you change, right? And what will happen, because now we're already past our hour. So obviously we got exactly one verse into well, I guess 1.5 verses into. We'll finish with this verse here. Although I was prepared to talk some more things. What happens with puraścaraṇa? What's happening by this? You become purified. The mantra becomes awakened, and then when one has the result, this mantra city, then one's mantra sadhana starts, right? Like I said, you can throw hand grenades with their pins at all you do. You may hit somebody in the head, but it won't kill them, right? To use a bad example, you know, it's like, so it's not going to work, right? You have to do the work to get some and awaken something or purify yourself to attain it. then the mantras work. This is in Tantra. This is the tantric side. The bhakti side, we talk about the same thing in a very different way, right? So I'm just giving you the background for these 3 verses, right? But they did it out of bhakti also, right? So Swami Shivananda, you can read the chapter on puraścaraṇa and the Japa Yoga book. It's one of the few versions where you can get it easily described and practical in English, because most of these puraścaraṇa has become, it doesn't sell well in the Western yoga world. I remember, maybe you know that Baba Rampuri, he's that Western Naga Baba. He's written some interesting books and had a pretty active one time he was very active online. And his online community, he wanted people, he was encouraging people to chant this Mahamrityunjaya mantra, Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaradam, this healing mantra. And we've chanted it, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we were chanting this mantra. And we encourage everybody to chant it. But he says the text that it comes from, the mantra comes from the Rudram, but the text that tells us to use it as japa mantra for healing and protection and liberation, like this, it says you have to get mantra siddhi. And the process of mantra siddhi is given. You have to get a Mrityunjaya yantra, put it on a red cloth in the northeast corner, right? Light a candle, offer flowers and certain rice, and chant every day for some bit puraścaraṇa. It's tens of thousands of times a day for several months, right? Then you have the mantra awake so that you can chant it for healing, protection, and liberation. And I remember he gave it very lovingly, there is a method, and I'll give it openly, right? Because this mantra is so powerful and so healing, everyone's using it. So I want everybody to have it awake for people, right? And make sure you pronounce it properly, right? And of course, you should it's a dangerous thing to read comments and the arguments, right? But it must have been 1,000 comments telling people you don't need to do this. This is all, it's like, I can check whatever. Why should I be to give us an easier sadhana? And he says, I've given you this mantra claims to liberate you from the birth of death, to bring the dead back to life. And you don't want to spend a few hours a day over 30 days to do anything. God bless you. May Shiva bless you. Give it your best shot, right? But this is the traditional way. Puraścaraṇa is the traditional way. So let me I'll make my interesting closing point. As these next 2-3 verses go on, they're going to describe various sadhanas. The next verse is going to be on the Devi Yajna, a particular ceremony of worship of the Devi. That's their core ceremony. They chant japa. They recite names, sahasranamas. They do nyasa, placing mantras on their body. All these tantric things, right? They don't say kirtan, but they meditate and sing God's names. All these type of things they do, right? And then the Devi appears to them, right? So why are they doing these things? Why it was started as puraścaraṇa, and they fast and they do vrats and all these type of things for not a short time. It says for years. Actually, it says for thousands of years. Their thousands of years, at least our years, right? These sadhanas they take a long time. Vishnu said, she's right here. Go to her. She's a wish-fulfilling tree, right? And then Vishnu himself, what do? He goes with him to a retreat, highest point above body consciousness, and they engage in years of mantra sadhana, right? If she's right here, can't we just say, Ma, help us? We can, and Ma's ever gracious, or we call out longingly, or she's not just the queen of the universe, she's our personal loving mother, right? We can like that. But it doesn't seem to work that way. Maybe you've noticed it doesn't always work that way, right? Also, Ma, give me an answer. And we listen and no answer. But maybe Ma has given us an answer and we don't hear it, right? Maybe Ma has come in front of us and we haven't seen her, right? That's the thing. Maybe the answer. So as I was kind of, creating the graphics for today's talk, a story came to me. I remember some Swami Chaitananda, he knows this, he told the story of a sadhu he knew, or a story that he knows, of a Ramakrishna mission monk. He was an older monk. This was a while back when TB was a major killer before the vaccines like this happened. In India, a lot of people died from TB. And this old sadhu, they didn't quite tell him that he had TB, right? But they sent him, kind of against his wish, was an attendant brahmachari to one of the Ramakrishna Seminary centers. They sent him to this one center, and as he got there, he wasn't well. He was already coughing and things like this, right? And he saw the sign, Ramakrishna Mission TB Clinic, right? Because they do a lot of these work, and he realized, oh, I have TB, right? And you know, it was for the most part at his age a death sentence, which means he's going to most likely die from TB. So when he got there, and he had a brahmachari as attendant taking care of him, right? And so he first thing he did, he went into his room, right, and he locked the door. He says, "Bring me only one meal a day, maybe a pure like khichdi, some vegetarian khichdi like this, right? And nobody bothered me." And for many days, he sat in meditation and did japa, thousands and thousands, hours and hours a day. He was a disciple of Holy Mother, a direct disciple. This is an important point, right? And before Holy Mother died, Holy Mother told him, right, if you ever have a problem and you need to contact me after I'm gone, right? Now you can just come to me, Holy Mother, this is my problem, fix it, right? But if after I'm gone, if you need my answer, you need my blessing, this is what you do. So he was doing what Holy Mother herself told him to do: fast, close the door, right? Control your food, sit in the proper position, and do so many thousands of the month that I gave you, like this, right? Right. So Swami Chaitanya telling the story, the reason is that her answer is not at this level of consciousness, right? He needed to raise his level of consciousness by this extra sadhana, not just his daily 15 minutes in the morning, bow to Thakur, do your work in the mission, bless the devotees, give good advice. In the evening, 10 arati, chant your 15, 20 minutes japa and go to bed. This is beautiful. What a beautiful life that is, right? A whole life, holy life of sadhana and meditation and service. But that's not enough. If you need my answer, if you need my direct answer, you have to raise your consciousness to my level, Holy Mother's level, her disembodied level, not like just her that's in the village. You can go and talk to her, right? Right. And so he had to raise his consciousness. This is what they're doing. They're raising their consciousness so that they can see Ma. She's in Manadvip and she's right here. She's going to be born in the Himalayas. They're in the Himalayas, right? She's going to be manifest. So she's already there. They don't see her yet. She's already answering their questions. They don't hear her yet, right? They have to raise, dramatically raise the level of their consciousness. Even the fact going to the Himalayas, the top of the Himalayas, they have to go beyond body consciousness minimally, right? That's where it starts. So beautiful. And I mean, I get very emotional thinking of the story, that when he had a vision of Ma. He had a vision of Holy Mother, and she says, "What do you?" And he asked a boon, right? And his boon was not, right, let me survive TB, right? This is the nature of a real. He was a real sadhu. He wasn't let me survive TB. He's an old man. He's lived his life, right? I think he even said, "I'm an old man. I've lived my life," right? You know, I think he actually told Swami Chaitanya this. "I'm an old man. I've lived my life." Right, but that brahmachari is young, right? He still has a lot of life in front of him and many spiritual practices in front of him. Please bless that he doesn't get TB, because he's serving him, you know. And you can see this is the nature of a real holy person. His real prayer was completely selfless, right? And even the gods you'll see in the story, the gods, their prayer is selfish. They want their position back. Right, but it's also selfless. It's for the good of the world, not just their good, right? But then when they actually see her, their consciousness is not at the level of, oh my God, there's Tadaka Sutta is bothering us. At that level, there's no Tadaka Sutta. Tadaka Sutta is not bothering them. They're high in the Himalayas with having an infinite pillar of light turned into Devi and offering a boon, right? So they forget to ask for the boon. Right? They said, we want to see you, you know, they just completely beyond, they go beyond their selfishness. So this is the thing, is that our sadhanas, we raise ourselves, right? And this is the theme throughout the Devi Bhagavatam. The gods, sages and gods, when there's trouble, they do tapasya and they raise their consciousness. And then they have a vision or an audition or a realization of the Devi, who gives them either instructions or a blessing or a boon, or just the highest level, she gives them union with her essential being, experiential union with her essential being. So we'll see as these verses unfold next week, what the next thing they do. So let's read that. Let's just recap that verse. These two verses. Thus enjoining all the gods and accompanied by his wife, the great Vishnu, as chief of the gods, set forth at once with his fellow lords, with the devas. He came to that great rocky crag, Himalaya, the lord of mountains, and all the gods commenced the puraścaraṇa-karmiṇaḥ, the preliminary rites of worship. So we'll leave it there tonight. Thank you for your kind attention. Sri Guru Maharaj Ji ki jai, Mahamaya ki jai, Swami Maharaj Ji ki jai, Bhuvaneshwari Devi ki jai. Any comments or questions?
One thing, Guruji,
Yep.
I've been thinking while listening and talking about puraścaraṇa and japa and them going to the Himalayas, and it reminds me when in the Bhagavad Gita, because it was always interesting to me in the 10th chapter where Krishna, as Bhagavan, is saying, he's identifying himself as, I am the sapidity in water, I am this. And of course, you were talking about how you're glorifying the Himalayas, and made me think of this verse.
Yes, yes.
And where he says, among the movable things, Stavaranam Himalaya, I'm the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always right before that is japa. He identifies himself as japa. Yajnanam japa yogyasmi stavaranam Himalaya. So I thought it's interesting that juxtaposition. But I always thought it was strange to jump from japa then Himalaya. But here they go perfect.
Yeah, no, that's a very wonderful connection, right? That verse, what is it? Yajnosmi japa. What is it? I don't have the. I know the verse, but
it's
japa verse. Yajnosmi.
Yajnanam japa yogyasmi.
Yagyasmi, yeah. So amongst yagyas, among sacrifices, I am japa. Now the Devi Yagya that's going to be described has its own rights, right? But the core of it, as we've already seen, is japa, right? Is mantras, right? And so in the Gita, there's an interesting one holy man, and he was very much pounding the importance of japa, right, and the holy name, right? And he used to us, right, so we don't get distracted, because we love all this. We love all the other stuff too. The problem, all the cool mantras and mudras and things, we love all that stuff, But he says that's in pranayama and yoga like that. He says that's okay, right? But it doesn't say I am pranayama, right? He says I am japa, right? So it's a very important thing. He says that, and then in the previous also among syllables I am om, right? I know they're showing that he's mantra, And then that sadhu told us that if you want a brick house, you should build it with bricks. If you use wood to build a house, you end up with a wood house, not a brick house. It's really simple, right? And so Krishna in this is God in the Gita, right? And he's saying, that I am mantra, and I am the practice of japa. Amongst sadhanas, by saying amongst yajna, he's saying amongst sadhanas, I am japa. Among sounds, I am om, it is mantra. Right. So this is a very secure way to know you're progressing spiritually towards God, when he himself says, or she herself says, right, I am the repetition, I am this sadhana. You want a brick house? Use bricks, use mantra, use japa. So this is very much on my orientation. So if we're a little heavy-handed on the japa part, this is what you get with us, that's ultimately our core, personally, our core interest, and what started me on my spiritual life is japa, and I hope that's the end also, because actually, on the time of death, I can't do pranayama, I can't do visualization, I can't do mudras and do puja. The time of death, I can do mantra, right? That's the thing you can hold on to, But it's not easy. The time of death to do mantra, you have to practice. You have to have mantra siddhi, right? Or at least have enough devotion that the name of God's the last thought. And that only happens if it's not your only thought, which it should be, at least your primary thought, right? In order to be your last thought. It's all very, but these are all verses from the Gita also, many of you know more than we do. this. Yeah, mantra is very important. So anyways, correct. Jayama, thank you, Swami. Any other comments or questions? This is good. Either you're all like, okay, I'm out of here, this is horrible, or oh, it was so good, I already left the speechless. Good. Well, good. This is very, very fine. We wish everyone. Of course, we're trying to investigate what these verses say, but these verses these aren't just about what a book says. This is about what we're supposed to do. So hopefully, something in here can inspire us. And from these verses, all these verses about nama and japa and yasa. I mentioned that the first classes I ever gave, first lectures I ever gave was on Devi Gita many years ago. I don't know how I'm not good at dates, and I don't have that linear sense of time. I don't remember when I started. But I remember one of the talks when we came to this, I just spontaneously started talking about the importance of japa and then the importance of kirtan. Because practically speaking, this time the yagya, Devi Yagna is doing nyasa and like recitations like that. But Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Chaitanya, and then the modern ages was Anandamay Ma and Purli Baba, they focus a lot on kirtan, right? So that is kirtan yagna. Just like japa yagna is the sacrifice of the sage. So kirtan is a sacrifice. And so that got me inspired to speak about kirtan. That eventually, it turned out to be not a bad ranting. It was a little bit ranting, I really have to admit. So we transcribed it, and then eventually that got published in some magazines, and it's also a chapter in our book in the Return to the Source. The chapter on kirtan is from it's me going on a unhinged rant from a Devi Gita, from these verses from Devi Gita many years ago. So I did a little better this time. I remember when Usha, we were going to send this transcript. Usha, let me look at it first. And she took out some names, and I was in a fiery mood. It's like we're gonna lose friends. Cleaned it all up, and okay, there's general principles, but not the what was happening in the spiritual world at the moment. I was a little bit fired up, but if you're interested, because we won't probably give that talk again next week. I want to stay closer to stay a little bit moored a little bit to the verses at hand. But if you I think that it may be on the Cyberduni website also. I think there's a link to that article that's based upon these verses in relation to the importance of kirtan and how to make kirtan. Kirtan also has yam niyama. It also has certain principles that makes it work. So how to make kirtan also work is also there. So Hari Om Tat Sat. All right, dear ones, good night. All blessings. Be healthy, happy. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. See you next week. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
Jai Ma, Guruji. Thank you for the inspiration. Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Jai Ma, Elijah.
I came in late, but I got just what I needed.
Good. Jai Ma. Good. Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.
Hari Om. Iri. Jai Ma. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Ma, Iri. Good night.